Correct. चालू करा.
Today we have assembled for the PhD Open Defense Viva of Vishal. So far as today's Viva is concerned, Professor Mahadev Deshmukh is chairman for today's Viva. Two external referees examined the thesis of Vishal Kurane. Out of them, Dr. Nagaraj from Karnataka University, Dharwad. He is external referee for today's Viva. On behalf of the department, on behalf of the Shivaji University, I extend a very warm welcome to chairman as well as external referee. I also extend a very warm welcome to all participants who are present, who have joined online Viva of Vishal Kurane. Now, talking about Vishal Kurane, he did MA, then MPhil. And after MPhil, I thought that he has a research foundation and he will endeavor his best so far as carrying out research is concerned. And his area of research interest was public economics or public finance. Therefore, we thought that the latest issue relating to public finance at that moment was goods and services tax. And it is therefore we thought that how the GST can have implications for fiscal operations of the government, comprising of both central government as well as state government. And it is again this backdrop, because all of us know tax in general and indirect tax in particular, and the provisions in the GST are lot of number of tax have been consolidated, and a single tax was expected and desirable so far as indirect tax is concerned. It is again this backdrop we decided to finalize topic on GST and fiscal operations of government in India, and that was finalized. I must thank Department of Economics for giving me an opportunity to work on this topic along with my research scholar Vishal Kurane. Once again, I extend a very warm welcome to Chairman for today's Viva, Professor Mahadev Deshmukh, external referee Nagaraj from Karnataka University Department of Studies in Economics, Dharwad. All other participants, teachers, and research scholars. I extend a very warm welcome on behalf of the Shivaji University, Kolhapur, on behalf of the Department of Economics. As this Viva is to be chaired by Professor Mahadev Deshmukh, I must handle charge of this Viva towards Mahadev Deshmukh. Over to you, Mahadev.
Thank you, Professor P.S. Kamble, sir. On the occasion of the Open Defense Viva of Vishal Kurane in the Department of Economics, I once again welcome the external referee, Dr. Nagaraj Mugdar, who is from the Department of Economics, University of Karnataka. And his thesis was evaluated by two different experts from two different universities. One is from the Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics, Professor Dr. Kailas Thavre. His report also we have been received. And another referee, as I mentioned, is Dr. Nagaraj Mugdar from the Karnataka University, whose report also we have received. And we are also having on the board our own senior faculty, Professor P.S. Kamble, sir, and all those who have joined on this particular online platform. So I request Mr. Vishal Kurane to be in brief by focusing on your objectives, your hypothesis, your research gap, and your suggestions and findings, so that after your presentation we will have some kind of questions if it is asked by the audience, and then we'll have the comments from the external referee, and then your own supervisor, which will conclude the session with vote of thanks. Over to Vishal.
Thank you, sir. Respected all dignitaries, and I extend to very warm welcome of the particular Vivas, external referee, respected Nagaraj sir, chairperson, respected Deshmukh sir, and my research guide, Professor P.S. Kamble sir. With the permission of the chairperson, I will start my presentation.
Just go ahead, Vishal. Go.
Sir. Yes, sir. My research topic is goods and service tax and fiscal operations of government of India. My research contents are I am going go through these contents. First is introduction, statement of problem, objective of the study, research methodology, sample design, importance of the study, limitation of the research study, chapter scheme, research gap, hypothesis of the study, data analysis technique, findings, suggestions, and conclusions. The introduction, the area of public finance has, one of the other hand, been expanded considerably. It has now regarded as a strong tool in the state hand of achieving important economic and social goals. Before this nation, the main objective of the accelerate their economic development, tax policy play an important role in the economy with their impact of the productivity and equity in order to encourage government spending on the public services and infrastructure construction. A good tax system should take account of the income allocation issue and the same time rise tax income. Cascading tax receipts affects the economic differently, and place considerably higher cost upon those without maximum economic offset. This point can be applied the international competitiveness of the adversely affected production sector in economy. These influence at home and abroad contribute to the wasteful distribution of productivity, capital economics. This leads to a reduction in revenue and healthcare for affected economic taxation. Taxation refers to the act of tax.
Vishal,
Sir.
Vishal, you go to your research gap, objective, hypothesis,
Oh, sir.
sampling.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Statement of the problem. The previous indirect tax system was extremely complex and difficult to understand. These tax were made up the cascading effect. This adds to the cost of goods and service tax, the tax on tax. That is, a customer have to pay. The structure indirect taxation was complex. Indirect taxation revenue was nominated in the tax revenue collection from the union government as well as states. Except the exception of the latest period of the central government, the same is cash of the single state like Maharashtra. It is over dependent of the government in India on the indirect tax revenue than the direct taxes. The single GST going to replace all 17 indirect taxes of both the union and state government in India. The problem of how both these government are going to collect tax revenue receipt and total revenue. More importantly, a shortfall in the revenue will also adversely affect the role of central and state government in the development, especially social development such as education, health, water supply, housing, and others. The spending activities of the government will affected by the adoption of GST. The necessity is the need for analyzing the impact of GST on
Go to
fiscal
next.
Awesome.
We got the statement of problem. Yeah.
Awesome.
What are your objectives?
Awesome. Objective of the study. My first objective is to review the theoretical background of the GST, to study the experience of the various nations with GST, right? The examine the structure of CGST and SGST and their sphere of taxation. To examine the fiscal operations of the central, state, local government and its on the social development. My fifth objective is to assess working of the GST at a grassroots level and the issue of taxpayer. My sixth objective is to find out problem of GST and provide policy suggestion. Research methodology. The present research study is an
Go to next. Yeah. Go to next.
Sample design.
Yeah.
The main study area of the empirical research is Western Maharashtra, which has carried out by taking a multi-stage proposing non-random sampling method. There are 5 districts in Western Maharashtra, 40%, 2 districts purposive non-random sampling of total district of Western Maharashtra is selected by using a purposive non-random sampling method. After selecting these two districts, 200 GST taxpayer has selected previously from the purposively from each district. In this 50 respondent from each selected district has interviewed from rigorous study. The present research is considered the local government representative and he's interviewed them. Researcher has considered a common man comprising of teachers, officers, labor, and other in order to for the impact of GST, their standard of living and welfare. For that purpose, 50 respondent sample respondent has interviewed and questionnaires administrating from each selected district. Sample of the total 400 respondent has selected from two districts, namely Kolhapur and Sangli, from Western Maharashtra for empirical study. Important of study. The present study is exclusive in the respect of the GST and its association with the fiscal operations. The present research study has its own value and following importance. First, the present research study enabled to get adequate with the theoretical background of the GST. The study, second is the study comes out with impact of GST on fiscal operations of the government of India in India. Third is the study shows how the fiscal operations of government are, and it will suggest how it ought to be. Fourth is the study helps to policy makers in formulation and modification of taxation policies. The new emerging issue of taxpayer can be addressed with the help of present study. Fifth is the study helps in knowing the issue of GST implementation at a grassroots level. Limitation of the study.
Go to next.
Chapter scheme.
Okay, go to next.
Research gap. Based on the above review of literature, earlier studies are different from the one another with respect to the selection of the study period, selection of the sample, selection of the parameter, selection of the statistical technique, analysis, and the interpretation. So researchers have found the following research gap. Many researchers have concentrated on the system and the process of GST in India, but the evaluation of the GST and its association with the fiscal operations in India has not been done. By reviewing the above literature, it is observed that detailed study on GST has not been conducted yet in the western part of Maharashtra, especially in Kolhapur and Sangli district.
Okay, go to next. Who next?
Yes, sir. Hypothesis. I have formulated two hypotheses. My first hypothesis is no significant negative impact of GST found on fiscal operations of the government in India. I have also formulated adjusted hypothesis. My null
Right.
hypothesis
What's
is.
the second hypothesis? Yeah.
Sir? Yes, sir.
Yeah. First and second hypothesis. Main hypothesis only you can mention. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. My first hypothesis is the number of significant negative impact of GST found on fiscal operations of the government in India. In this table, I have used the one sample t-test for testing the similarity of the difference between two dependent variable of indirect tax collection from the previous and present GST tax system. The hypothesis statistics show that the negative hypothesis were rejected and the alternative hypothesis were accepted because of the calculated t-value of the 30.724 is greater than the table t-value of 2.042 along with the p-value of 0.1 is similar than the 0.05% significant level of 32 degree freedom. My second hypothesis is the GST is significantly pro social development in India. In this table shows the chi-square test of the assumption. It is clear from result of these tests that the negative hypothesis put forward by the researcher has been rejected and the alternative positive hypothesis has been accepted. This is because the p-value of the assumption 0.001 is.
Okay, go to the next. Yeah. Got it.
Okay. The present slide shows that the all India total tax revenue before economic reforms. In this slide, I have mentioned graphical and table format. There is a important observation here. As per the data in the year of 1950-51, direct tax revenue was 231 crore and indirect tax revenue was 396 crore in all India. In the year 1989-90, before economic reforms, direct tax of 11,165 crore and indirect tax revenue of 66,528 crore were observed in all India. It implies that indirect tax outnumber direct tax during the study period. The significant observation shows that the before economic reforms, there was a large amount of indirect tax contribution to total revenue. The study put forward that the overall trend of total tax revenue reflect that the before economic reforms and indirect tax contribution was dominant. Different kind of indirect tax have been imposed by the government since they were independent. As a result, the
Vishal, go
contributory.
to the next. Don't read
Yes.
everything. You just nuts it.
Sir.
Just one or two line of each slide. You can just elaborate.
Okay, sir. Okay. Slide has present slide is shown that the all India total tax revenue after economic reforms. Therefore, the positive and strong tax revenue growth is recorded by the direct and indirect tax revenue. A comparative study reflects that after economic reforms, growth of direct tax revenue has been improved as compared to indirect tax due to fiscal disciplines. The FRBM Act and new tax sources have come under direct taxes. Overall, positive growth was observed in direct and indirect tax revenue during the study period. The table shows that the present slide shows central tax revenue before economic reforms. The significant finding indicates that the period of the economic reforms, the contribution of the central revenue taxes was reported as a slower collection of direct and indirect taxes during the study period. The reason behind different type of the tax leakages was identified before fiscal operation. The average and medium central taxes revenue tendency is observed during the study period. The present slide shows the central tax revenue after economic reforms. It's clear and it's clearly indicated that the after fiscal reforms and fiscal disciplines, the majority of the revenue sources come under a direct tax pattern. The growth of indirect tax revenue is a far
Go
slower.
to next.
Yes, sir.
Go to next. Concentrate more on GST and primary data.
Yes, sir. Yes. This slide shows GST revenue of April 2019 to March 2020. Just a minute, sir. This in this table, the overall trend of all type of GST such as the CGST, SGST, and IGST fluctuated from the April 2019 to March 2020 overview. On the type of GST, it has been determined that the average of revenue from IGST is higher than that of CGST and SGST. That is 48,892 crores. The highest coefficient of the variation of the revenue from the CGST was 7.86% and lower from IGST was 6.6% during the study period. The CAGR of revenue for all type of GST has been declined from some time. The maximum revenue has been recorded as 54,733 crore by the IGST, whereas the minimum revenue has been observed 16,630 crore by CGST from April 2090 to March 2020. The present slide shows opinion of the citizen with GST. It implies that digital taxation mechanisms have been not much technical issue. Basically, taxpayers are the experience technical issue such as server down, delay in the tax payment settlement in the previous taxation such as sale tax and service tax. There was a much issue was expected respect to non-response of the server and delay in the issue of settlement. There is a to find findings, important findings are there.
Fine, go to next.
Yes. Present slide shows that the impact of GST on family income of the respondent. Does the family income adversely affected due to the implementation of GST? If it is, then what will be nature of impact has been attempted to the study. It is clearly from the data that the 27.0% of Kolhapur district and 30.0% of Sangli district and 20.0% in total sample respondents are strongly agreed to the statement that the family income has not much affected due to the GST. There is a negative association between tax rate and disposable income of the citizen. It means that that with the increase in tax rates, disposable income reduce and vice versa. As a result, it has attempt to quantify the impact of GST on respondent disposable income. The present slide shows impact of GST on family expenditure of the respondent. Respondent's family income has income been affected or not since the implementation of GST, which has been attempted to the research under the economic impact of the GST in the study region. The impact of GST or respondent family expenditure is shown in table according to the data. 5.50% of Kolhapur residents and 61.0% of Sangli residents and 53.25% of the overall sample respondents strongly agreed that their family expenditure decreased following GST. The present slide shows impact of GST on family consumption of the respondent. It has seen from the data 26.50% of Kolhapur district and 23% of Sangli district respondent are strongly agreed with the statement that their family consumption has reduced due to the GST. Likewise, the 57% of Kolhapur district and 47.50% of Sangli district sample respondent agreed to the same statement. The change in the tax system and the tax rate leads to change in consumption level of the people and propensity to consume. The consumption of the goods and services reduce if the tax rate increases and vice versa. It means that theoretically there is a negative association between the rate and propensity to consume. Under the backdrop, it has an attempt to study how the GST has impact on the family consumption of the respondent in context of reduction in consumption regulatory in the consumption disparity from the consumption of the certain goods and ability to consume goods due to the high GST rate. The present slide shows impact of GST on propensity to save any investment.
Yeah.
The impact of GST.
We shall highlight only what is the impact, negative or positive impact. We just mentioned.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Yes, sir. Present slide shows a growth impact of GST on businesses. The expansion of the business activity are considered as a growth of the businesses. The impact of GST on the business growth has been assessed with the help of before-after method. The table shows the before GST growth of the businesses and after GST growth businesses in selected district. It indicates that the growth of impact of GST is seen more in case of Sangli district rather than the Kolhapur district. In other words, industrial sector of the Sangli district has a more positive affected due to GST. The present slide shows profitability impact of GST on businesses. District-wise impact of GST on the profitability of the firm reveals that the business unit in the Kolhapur district are comparatively earning more of profit than the Sangli district after the GST implementation. In short, comparatively, Sangli district is a better of the context of growing business activities, but it is lagging in the profitability.
Vishal, go to
Sir.
your suggestions, findings and suggestions.
Yes, sir.
Only 4 to 5 findings and 4 to 5 suggestions. Don't read all. Yeah, major.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Finding related to GST fiscal operations, central, state, and state government in India. India has chosen a federal structure which a clear distinction in made between the union and state function and sources of revenue. But the residual power belong to the central. The state receive grant in aid of their revenue of the union, which further increases the amount of transfer between the two levels of the government. The transfer of the resources from the central government to the state is an essential feature of the present fiscal system. Pending on impact of GST on consumer, uh, there is a negative association attribute between the tax rates and saving as well as investment. It implies that increasing tax rates leads to decreasing the amount of saving and investment. Under these circumstances, it has been assessed district-wise whether the GST has hampered the propensity to save and investment or not. The data emphasize the impact of GST on propensity to save investment in context of decrease saving and investment, decrease propensity to save, irregularity in the saving and investment, and inability to maintain the desired level of saving. Finding related to
Next. Ah,
suggestions.
yeah, suggestions. Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Suggestion related from the legal tax form aspect. Some taxpayers have appealed their GST amount monthly and some have appealed the quarterly returns. Therefore, it is a sin to mismatch GSTR and 3B. So it is necessary that all taxpayers or registered dealers should give the same period, monthly or quarterly. GST, another GST late fees are a very big problem for the dealers. When the government waived that late fees, then it should also consider the dealers who had paid late fees before the decision. Suggestion related to general aspect. GST would transform the way in Indian pay taxes, but it is a tax reforms that most Indian do not fully compare. As a result, underdeveloped country, especially India, should be required to adjust their slab rates and complexities in the GST tax.
Fine. Conclude.
The preceding studies show that tax reforms have made a significant progress in recent year, allowing the tax to GDP ratio to return to live seen period the reduction of custom duties. There, however, it is only the beginning, and there is still a long way to go in terms of tax reforms. The Indian tax regime has evolved gradually with the introduction of GST into the economy. It has reduced the complexity of the various tax, and all taxes are brought under the single umbrella. The business environment has experienced holistic growth with this.
We will stop here.
Okay.
Have a questions from the participants. I think around 24 have been joined for this particular Viva host. So Vishal has presented his synoptical things related to his title, Goods and Service Tax and Fiscal Operations of Government of India. And basically he has covered the two districts, Sangli and Kolhapur districts. And his sample size was around 400, 200 from Sangli and 200 from the Kolhapur. I think by taking the both secondary as well as the primary information related to taxation, He has summarized his thesis under the supervision of Professor P.S. Kamblesar. And a lot of data I think he has put in this particular thesis. I have gone through his report just now. I come across that from 51 onwards. What was the tax position till 1991, and after 1991, what was the position? I mean, before new economic policy, after new economic policy, then after the introduction of this new concept like the GST, and what is its implication on the various aspects of the economy, including the traders as well as the consumption expenditure of the people. All these parameters, I think he must have covered under this particular thesis. But after that, his presentation, if somebody want to have some questions in mind, they can raise the questions for which the Vishal will defend. And after the questions, we will ask the external referee who is present for this Viva was to conduct to give his own remark. Anybody would like to ask the questions to Vishal? Right. I think his presentation all have been understood and all have agreed what he has presented. Now, may I invite the external referee, Professor Dr. Nagaraj Mugdur, to put his own remark related to this thesis because he has gone through the each chapter, each page of this particular thesis. Thoroughly, he has examined this thesis. He has recommended this particular thesis to the university, and his recommendation is a positive. That is why we all are here for his open defense viva. Now I invite Professor to put your own remarks, sir.
Thank you, sir. Professor M.S. Deshmukh, sir, Chairman of the Department of Economics, Shivaji University, Kolhapur. Respected Kamble, sir. First of all, I thank Shivaji University, Kolhapur for giving me an opportunity as an external referee to evaluate the Mr. Vishal M. Kurane thesis. So, the Vishal M. Kurane chosen a very good topic in consultation with the research guide. So I think Professor Kamble sir familiar with GST and in particular this aspect GST. That's already talked on the most important aspects. This is a goods and service tax and physical operations of Government of India. So very nice presentation, and the entire the thesis. There are seven chapters, neatly written and well planned, so as to know the implication of GST and fiscal activities of India. So I think the support chapter, it is a contribution to the GST in India across the globe by classifying the developed and developing countries now. So in particular, the data pertaining to the study, it is a fairly reliable, more extensive and rich in context. The language is very clear, no doubt, simple and more lucid, and thereby addressing the doubts in the mind of the stakeholders. However, I have few queries on your particular thesis. So at the time of publication, so you can incorporate all those things. First, the most important aspect is there are some minor grammatical mistakes in your particular thesis. That is so you are mentioned in the fourth chapter now, developed and developing countries. Okay, so you are not mentioned in underdeveloping countries, but you are mentioned some in the middle chapters. So underdeveloped countries. So you taken care some of the wordings now. Even second important, I observe the things. It is not clear why selecting the second data taken from 2001 to 2019. That is, I think, this is page number 14. Moreover, there are no systematic reference, the finally systematic reference, and it should be in alphabetic form or in API style form. Okay, that is the most important. So on other parts, on the whole, the thesis is neatly planned, well designed, and presented by researcher. Apart from this, the researcher made sincere efforts in collecting, compiling the relevant information and deserve appreciation. As such, it is a valuable addition to the existing literature pertaining to the GST and fiscal operations, and analyzing theoretically, but also it is empirical also explained. By keeping these things in view, I appreciate and congratulate both the supervisor and researcher for their excellent work. So hence I strongly recommend the thesis submitted by Vishal M. Kurane for the award of PhD degree in economics of the Shivaji University Kolhapur. Thank you for giving me an opportunity. Thank you, sir, Professor M.S. Deshmukh, sir, and also Kamble, sir.
Yeah,
So
thank
I
you. Thank you. Yeah,
congratulate Vishal M. Kurane.
right.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, Dr. Nagaraj,
Yeah.
for thoroughly giving the assessment of this thesis and remaining present for the vows of this
Yeah,
mission,
sir.
and also
Thank you.
putting
It's
some
pleasure.
comments for that. There is
Yeah.
always association of Department of Economics of Shivaji University
Definitely.
with your own university, and we are
Yes.
very nearby, though there are two
Yes.
different states, but
Yeah, nice, sir.
academically we are together, and
Yes, yes.
definitely we are remaining in touch with you. So Vishal,
Definitely.
Do you want to say anything about what the sir has said, just in 1 or 2 lines?
Yeah.
About what, sir?
About the sir's your APA styles and your some grammatical error.
Yeah.
Fine. I think these are the general remarks. I think sir has
Yeah,
made.
yeah, yeah, yes, sir.
These were the general remarks. I think
Yeah.
Vishal will take forward this particular remarks. Whenever we will go for the publication of this particular thesis, you can incorporate the suggestions
Yes,
given
yes,
by the
definitely.
referees. Both the another referee, which is of from the Gokhale Institute. I think Professor. Professor Kailas, Dr. Kailas Thirwal, he has also assessed this particular thesis and his report is also positive, and he has appreciated the work done by the Vishal under the supervision of Professor P.S. Kamble sir. So as a chairman of this particular thesis, what I feel, and even as a researcher of the economics, what I feel, database which has been gathered for the GST, this is a very touching topic for everybody's heart. But the GST is the topic which the government has introduced. That from there are many people who has been opposed. There are many things which will happen to the community as well as to the businessman, and there were many hesitations for the implementation of that. But somehow, slowly and gradually, it is trending. And this particular exercise which the Vishal has done, it will become one of the roadmap for the people to go to get some kind of information from his own work. So in nutshell, both the examiners has been given the positive remarks. They have strongly recommended thesis for the university, and the positive remark they have been given. So with this, now may I request Professor P.S. Kamble sir to propose a vote of thanks. But before going to the vote of thanks, let us, from my side, being a chairman of this particular Viva Boss, definitely your today's views as well as your views which have been covered on the paper, definitely will put forward to the university, and we will strongly recommend to the university to award the PhD degree in economics to Vishal Kurne after this open defense 5 hours. Now over to Professor P.S. Kamble for the proposing vote of thanks.
Thank you very much, Professor Mahadev. At the very outset, I am here to propose vote of thanks. My thanks, sincere thanks, goes to Professor Mahadev. Already he is busy in number of activities, but he spared time for the affection and student-centric his approach and always cooperative approach. I'm very much thankful, Professor Mahadev, for being with us and conducting Viva in a very systematic manner, in a very scientific manner. Thank you very much. I must thank Dr. Nagaraj from the very beginning. He's my friend, and I'm very much associated with Nagaraj, and he's very sincere. His peculiarities, he specialized in econometrics and mathematical economics, so far as his specialization is concerned. And he has very thoroughly, sincerely, honestly examined thesis of Vishal. Dr. Nagaraj, thank you very much for assessing the thesis and
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
giving positive remarks as well as presenting for the today's Viva. I must also thank all participants, research scholars and research students of the department and teachers as well. Number of teachers from colleges have also joined today's Viva. I am very much thankful to them. I must thank university authorities, Honorable Vice Chancellor Sir, Pro Vice Chancellor Sir, Registrar, all other administrative staff which is instrumental in conducting this Viva. Last but not the least, once again I am thankful to Chairman Professor Mahadev, external referee Dr. Nagaraj, all participants, research college students and university authorities. We can congratulate Vishal on this occasion. Thank you very much. With the kind permission of Chairman, I declare today's Viva